but this is their chance to really put themselves on the board. First match of the day, Pacific Showdown.
We're going to be starting things out on University as well. And now, look, when we talk to Talon, when they really start to maybe think about what they want to bring to the table here, they did mention they have a few secrets, and you might see them today.
Coming out the gates, both of these teams squared up, and it looks like they're both kicking it off with just a 3-3, testing the waters a little bit here on University.
All right, I'll promise the damage is coming later, but for starting things out, Apudo is going to be on the Sombra for University, so straight away though, Silver in the hole.
Yeah, that's going to give Talon a real nice advantage. You see that in Muse dropping Milan Ran, and they're starting to route T1W off the point. Now Talon, honestly, that looked pretty easy breezy for them.
And this is where Talon are going to be first capping here pretty soon. T1W probably do get back in time, but they're going to be relatively behind an ult charge. Look at Kagura and Amija, those are the two members.
Oh, that's a really high impact catch. Just as T1W is squaring back up again. Talon trying to push forward now. Going to drop Silver. Pretty nice pickup. Might be able to get a few more members. Going to be Mijik going down. Hybe is going to preserve the mech, but T1W not off to a hot start here.
So usually when you look at a Sombra Goats composition in the 3-3, it's Apudo on the Sombra that you want to be looking out for. What is his ult charge? How close is he to that EMP? But because these fights have been going so quickly, it's Kagura cleaning up house, and he's going to be the one hitting up the Graviton Surge fairly early.
Yeah, leaps and bounds ahead of not just his opponent, but also the rest of his team. That grab is going to be maybe even a bit of a surprise factor here. Stun on Silver. That's without even using ultimates yet, but good counter trade onto Bashful. That being said, losing at Reinhardt is going to be far more costly, and the charge out on Gogora, demecking high B. They're trying to hit back as best as they can here, T1W, but they just aren't getting the traction. Talon are always staying ahead in these trades.
And worse still, T1W are not getting ultimates out of Talon just yet, who are winning these so cleanly. It's been about 50%, 3 fight wins, 4 ultimates available. You have the EMP now, you have the Graviton Surge now. T1W still waiting for their first ult.
And it's going to be a Transcendence, one of the first ones available, but there's so many things on Talon that you want to use that case. This being one of them, it doesn't even matter that they didn't find Weir. It's going to be easy enough to clean up all 5 of those hacked out members. Weir will get that Transcendence available for the next fight, but he's going to have to wait for that one.
And you look at this, it's a total game of inches. Weir was, what, 5% away from hitting the Transcendence. If he has it in time, he maybe counters out the EMP. He maybe forces Gagora or somebody else, Muse, to drop in their ultimates as well. That would have been a worthwhile trade for T1W, but now they're hopelessly behind. It's 84%, and Talon still have resources.
Yeah, this is officially last fight territory, right? Talon, they still look just leaps and bounds ahead. All those ultimates available. First grab out, Transcendence nicely timed from Weir, but Illusion's still going to go down at just shy of a Sound Barrier 2. Shadow from Muse does go straight into Silver Shield, so Self-Destruct going to buy T1W some space. Now it's their turn to get into the mix of things. Silver, though, super low, going to go down. That's a tough pill to swallow. Mija as well. That grab just a bit too late. No one's on the point, including Talon, who are going to 100-0 for the very first map here.
And it's about setting the tempo of the game as well, and Talon have been doing that ever since fight number 1. They did not lose a single engagement throughout that entire opening round. Clean as you like it, 100-0, had all the ultimates, lights were fully on, and for T1W, not too sure I can say the same thing here. A lot of catch-up required for this team. Not the best showing so far in our opening map.
Not remotely surprised either to see T1W changing off 3-3. Now, I think that was a real statement. Talon said if we go 3-3 mirror, we outpace you in the macro. So now T1W get to start reaching into those very deep pockets of theirs.
And this is what we expect to see when we have these two teams lined up, right? A lot of DPS potential here. Mijik, we know him for the Doomfist so well. Hybe does flex onto the Soldier as well. You can look at guys like Gagora. It's the flex tanks that can really make these compositions work.
And Talon themselves pulling out something a little bit spicy. I guarantee you this will be how they're planning on dealing with T1W, and I bet you they're anticipating that Doomfist too.
And the best part is, Apudo is the one that really shuts down Mijik, and no one else is really going to get shut down by Mijik himself.
Hybe.
You got a pharmacy in the air. Who's he supposed to punch?
Oh, getting Hybe down so huge, takes the pressure off Bashful, who just rips through the rest of these members. Rez does come in onto Hybe, but T1W have suffered some heavy casualties already, and Hybe getting dropped pretty soon after that anyway. That is again going to be Talon kind of easing their way through that opening skirmish.
I think T1W are going to have to change at some point, because Talon Esports, overachievers that they are, they've certainly done their homework. Look at this. The entire composition is basically not ever going to die to Mijik's Doomfist. Gagora can hook him out. Apudo can hack him out. You're not getting Bash, you're not getting CQB. Innen's probably not going to get hit. Muse maybe, and that's about it. Who are you supposed to go on if you're Doomfist?
You've also just got so many fewer tools that can enable you as the Doomfist. You've got the Nano Boost, and that's that. Molanran as well, even taking pot shots in this dogfight. He is really struggling to get ground against Bashful.
Let's have a look now. 29-ish%. Valkyrie's already being used in there, but Bashful, well, it's not a good one.
Yeah, and the anti-heal out on Gogora means he gets dropped, so this is a big window now for T1W. Silver took a lot of heat, and him not going down has really helped them out here. Late hack, and he will eventually drop. Also rezzing Gogora, but finally Meja is unlocked. Will find in. Talon don't want to let this go without a fight. Going to commit an EMP as well. Do get a couple of good members here, but T1W have committed those support ultimates. They're in this for the long haul, and their pockets are relatively deep here. Meja still out and about, prowling, looking for punches. That's decent though. Oh, this is so back and forth.
And the thing is, he's maybe starting to get a couple of picks. You see immediately as the EMP does come down from Apudo, the instant nano boost response from Weir onto Meja to keep him alive. However, if you're putting that much resource in, Meja's probably not having the output, and that's meant, but now kind of resulting in a 70% lead for Talon Esports. A lot of ultimates off the table now, but Talon's still in the lead.
That's the thing, when the dust all settles, T1W never actually had the presence on the point, the boots on the ground to really actually flip the point, and that's what really matters at the end of the day.
We really got to see if Hybe can do something with the nano, with the rather tactical visor here. He doesn't have a nano boost to go with him, and well, in as well on the tracer, expecting the pulse bomb to maybe do something as well.
Ooh, nearly got Weir, but not quite. He is going to top himself off. Stun on Hybe, but he's out in the thick of it for the split second that he needs. Good pressure onto Bashful here. Malanran also holding on to that grab. Nice bump off the edge. That's going to be Muse. Maybe able to tug himself back up, but it's going to keep him out of action for a while. Gogora Low's just got to go ahead, commit a whole hog, but Hybe's got the inside track on that one. Finding CQB as well means no res for this fight. So finally 99% for Talon, but T1W have found the fight that they need, will finally start getting themselves on the board here.
And this is where unlocking one of your DPS is very important. Malanran so far hasn't had great success, and this is one of his better picks on the Pharah. Meja, we've talked about already what you can do with the Doomfist versus Talon Esports' previous composition. Not too much, so Hybe finally shutting down the air combo, gets the pharmacy down completely. This is now allowing T1W to finally get this cap in. 4 ultimates available. Talon going to make a big swap up. They know they have a 99% lead.
Yeah.
Rely on the EMP to maybe get themselves a victory. If that doesn't happen, they still got a lot of buffer to play with to get the other ultimates.
That's the thing, the EMP is a lot of that buffer even, just going for those dive tanks as well in what is basically a Sombra Goats. A variation of the infamous, I suppose, 3-3 comp with that EMP out. Yeah, that's decent counter trades here for T1W, finding Muse, but good sleep takes the heat off them. However, T1W still ahead in this fight. I have to say, Talon really not getting the ultimate charge that they might have been looking for here, as T1W still cleaning up a few late kills.
Well, that's the first unfortunate, really big mistake from Talon there. They just didn't quite connect well with the EMP. They have to rely on now the other ultimates coming through, and this is more of a traditional lineup, right? It's kind of harkening back to a traditional Goats with the Sombra, the Winston variation, and they got a lot of catch up to do. They're running out of that buffer now. 39% is what they're really working with in terms of percentage points, and it's not going to be a lot very soon.
And T1W have all the ultimates they need that will give them the pick potential. That Meteor Strike especially. Muse early casualty as well, so it's really rough here for Talons, who are really just still trying to charge up ultimates. Also Apudo getting picked out a little bit too isolated there. Now Malanran, little unlocked, going to try to keep some pressure on these backliners as they get back to spawn. Now 80% for T1W.
The problem with Talon swapping back onto a Sombra Goats is they find it much more difficult now to shut down Meja, to shut down Malanran as well. They don't quite have the same amount of tools. They're now trying to re-push in, definitely out of time, and still don't really have ultimates.
Even if they had another EMP, which you could have expected them to have by now, that wouldn't be enough on its own potentially. So Talon really backs against the wall here as we get to the 99-99. Muse is going to take a nano boost, but bumped off the high ground. Not going to shut down Hybe. Just pumping in some damage. Gets Gogora, who was demech. Now CQB as well, wide open. Meja finds one on the back line, and T1W no trouble cleaning up that fight against an all but ultless Talon. So now tied up we are on Oasis.
And I think for Talon as well, they just didn't quite have the setup there. You need to go on to Hybe, who does have the tactical visor, who has the high ground, and it's a comfortable position for a team like T1W to be in when they have a soldier composition that can take that high ground. Doomfist on the side, Pharmacy in the air, so many threats on multiple angles of the map that if you are Talon, you have to deal with all of those, and they weren't quite equipped to with the composition that they were running. And what's interesting to me as well, that they decided they didn't have the kind of confidence to remain on the opening DPS comp and went straight back onto Sombra Goats, which unfortunately really didn't work out.
Yeah, a bit of a shame, but now coming out on this one, this is going to be a little bit spicy. So, I mean, I say spicy. This feels a little bit more by the book for T1W, at least their book. That means Talon decide they want to answer with that Sombra 3-3 again.
And this is kind of the Element Mystic composition, right? You see the Sombra, you see the Doomfist. It's very, very key in what we can see in this particular tournament too. One of the best teams is definitely running that. Pudo's still on the Sombra. Talon looking for something.
Milan just keeping on the back end, doesn't quite find any opening damage. Nice stun out, he's in trouble, has to get out of there. Muse, though, taking an anti-nade. Going to be able to get topped off, but in a little bit of hot water for a second. Now Talon trying to keep that presence on the point as T1W rotate to the high ground.
And the point is open now. Mija actually is getting in the thick of things, but not quite finding much yet.
Big hack on Apudo. Muse getting battered about is finally going to get dropped down. That's T1W getting all the groundwork they need done to open out this fight. Now want to maybe try and get some later picks as well and see if Talon can retreat safely.
And this kind of comp Apudo is very key because he can shut down most of the other side of T1W, right? Specifically, Mija's going to have a really good time here. He's got a lot of support to play with, and Apudo needs to get this hack on him. Apudo is it's going to be under a lot of pressure.
Milan, speaking of under pressure, he does get back to his team, but that was a little bit dicey. And that's also given Gogora a bit of much-needed ult charge. He's the only one really outpacing his counterpart right now. Speaking of which, T1W going to start committing ultimates into this fight. CQB found out on the back line, and only the one casualty, but no trades mean Talon are still on the back foot here.
And this is what a Doomfist does for your team as well. It puts the opponents on a time clock, a time bomb. And if you don't deal with Mija, if you don't really push him fast enough, he's going to jump down, he's going to smack one of your supports or somebody out of the map, and CQB goes down straight away. So it's instantly a 5v6 that Talon don't want to push into.
That was the nano boost as well committed there. So T1W get to rotate now into an EMP. Nearly got the grab available as well. Gogora has laid pace on that, but Apudo commits his EMP first, but the counter EMP from Milan, and they're finding the picks to back it up as well. Easy cleanups here. T1W starting to look very, very slick now.
And honestly, that could have been easier as well. You know that Apudo actually got Silver within his own EMP. If Silver wasn't caught, because Muse was certainly caught by Milan runs, T1W would have comboed a Shadow as well. That could have been a much bigger cleanup. Talon Esports would be pretty happy to even get away with the amount of members that survived. They still have ultimates to play with, but this has been the slowest they've been all the way, since they haven't been on the board yet. 4 percentage points on this round.
Now here is one key difference between these teams right now. The lack of Zenyatta on T1W, and
that's
now actually the lack of Sombra. That's pretty significant. Grab going to be committed first by High B. There's the counter in the form of a Transcendence. Gogora a bit low, will go down here, trying to get some counter damage. The barrier's been enough to keep T1W healthy, but a huge shatter from Muse. Finding his counterpart as well means no counter shatter available. Finally, Talon Esports are going to find themselves a bit of something. 98% for T1W, but Talon back on the point.
And Apudo just reached really deep into his black hat there and pulled out a nice white rabbit, and that's exactly what that is. When you take down Milan Run straight at the top, it's a magic trick. It's a 6v5. That kind of kill doesn't usually happen. And for Talon, able to push in now, Apudo very far ahead in terms of EMP charge. They're going to rely on this to snowball further.
And that's the thing. They actually are a bit lean on ultimates outside of that. Do have themselves a sound barrier, which could help against some of these ultimates, notably the Shadow, but that's going to be EMP. Quick commit. Nice fight on High B. Couple of counter trades, though. Mija being enabled is always a threat. Still finding more kills as well, but Talon do have the upper hand in this fight. It's going to be a real tall order for Mija and Milan to pull it back, and with Mija dead, well, them's the breaks Talon are going to hold.
And honestly, with the EMP in play, that was a lot closer for T1W than it probably should have been if you're on the Talon side of things. So you can see how good of a game this can be for T1W. If Mija is unlocked, he's playing up against a composition that he's very used to. It's basically, it's a 2-2-2 with the Sombra Doomfist versus the Sombra Goats, and well, he's very practiced against that. He knows what he's doing. And he get the picks even if EMP's in play.
Sleep on Muse, that's a big opening, and they're going to commit right on it. Muse unable to do anything about that Shatter. That's a freebie. Sound barrier is good, but not enough to save Muse. In though, close to a Transcendence. Fighting Weir as well, but not quite going to last out that EMP, unfortunately, for himself. Talon trying to look for a counter trade here. Mija did reposition a little bit. This is probably T1W getting back in control of the point, and at 98% as well. Talon back against the wall here, now stuck in a grab. 2 kills, 3 kills, that'll be them all. T1W trying to live up to their namesake here. Late game Shatter here for Muse. They're trying to come back in with just him and in, but no dice. And that's going to be T1W picking up control.
And Talon Esports, you got to feel for them because they got so close towards the middle. If you look at City Center again, you're kind of thinking that could have been theirs. That could have been the 2-0 to begin things on Oasis. You get the Gardens and suddenly things fall apart very quickly. The T1W, remember, the powerhouse team that has been winning all events in China for a long time. That's kind of what you got a glimpse of in that final round. And if the momentum keeps shifting in their favor, well, they're only going to get better, and Talon have to readdress now.
And that's the thing. I think what we really saw in another way was, I mean, T1W kind of shaking off the rust. I don't know, waking up a little bit. It's the afternoon already, but I don't know, maybe they slept in. But we also saw that first match was a mirror 3-3. Well, I say mirror 3-3. Apudo, of course, on the Sombra there, but it sort of said, look, if you're going to play stock standard 3-3, we'll outpace you in the macro game. So T1W didn't go back to it, and funnily enough, they didn't lose those other two maps.
And I don't think they should be going back to it either, because it doesn't seem like it's really within their wheelhouse. This is not really the type of team that you would expect. Okay, it's a 3-3 coach team. It's not. They're known for playing DPSs. They're known for Sombras. They're known for Doomfist. And when they really dig deep into their pockets in that regard, they look really good.
Speaking of digging deep, we did also see Talon trying to pull out some different team comps there, and we sort of talked about it on City Center. They did actually seem to have all the answers. But like we say, they got to that 99-0. You maybe thought, hey, this is going to be another 100-0 shutout, and then they sort of changed things up. Maybe misread or maybe felt that it was going to work out and it didn't. You know, you're looking at, hey, only need one fight. So I think Talon might just look at that and readdress, okay, what do we need to do against these comps?
All right, well, that's going to be it for the opening map, so we are going to take a bit of a break. But when we do come back, T1W Talon, they will continue. Welcome back, everybody, to the Pacific Showdown. We're, of course, in match number 1 here at Talon Esports versus T1W, who have taken the lead in the series 1-0 on Oasis.
Officially on the board, maybe the beginning of that redemption we were talking about. So Talon have had a couple of minutes to look at what went wrong there, look at what they might want to shift up, and try and at least keep this one competitive.
And it's about readdressing, reassessing, because that was a very close opening, right? They had a very early lead. Talon, I'm speaking about, they had what could potentially have been a 2-0 round lead on Oasis, which would have given them that first map, but T1W fighting back super strong, abandoning that 3-3 goats they started out on University, coming back to what we know them for, which is DPSs, Doomfist in particular on Media, and that's exactly how T1W should be looking to play if they want to win the series.
That's the thing. You saw the tempo of that map really shift from one way to the other as T1W got into their comfort zone. I dare say that Talon aren't quite in their comfort zone themselves, and we saw that on some of the team comps they played. They also get this next map pick coming up, so I'd like to see them just kind of take a deep breath and move back to what they know.
And what they know is typically Sombra goats, right? It's Sombra with the, you know, what would have been the 3-3 shell, but obviously you take one of the DPSs, one of the Diva play, the Flex player out, you put him on the Sombra instead. The big concern for me now is they did just play the Sombra goats versus the Sombra Doomfist composition that T1W had. And even if it was just Doomfist, maybe that helps out a bit. But what becomes an issue is that looks so flawless for T1W in very many ways that for Talon, if the Sombra goats composition no longer works, I'm not too sure what else they can realistically fall back onto. Maybe they go back to a more traditional 3-3 goats, because that was kind of maybe could possibly work out better for them, but so far they haven't really played any of that.
They did have a bit of success when they were running that other comp, bit more shutdown potential against the Doomfist, but there were also a lot of other factors there as well. I mean, that was on City Center. You know, you get soldiers, you get tracers, you get Pharaohs. It's a completely different ball game. The Doomfist isn't necessarily the spiciest element there, so when they're on that Sombra Doomfist situation, that's what Talon really need to figure out here.
And I also want to look at Gagora, because he's one of the key players, I think, for this team. When you have a Pudo on a DPS pick, whatever that is, he's the one, Gagora that's going to be playing the Zarya, and I do consider him to be the better Zarya of the team. If they go back to a traditional 3-3 goats, it's actually going to be a Pudo on the Zarya instead, with Gagora on the Diva, so I don't know if that's going to work better for the team. It's almost, you'd consider, better for Talon to continue running through the Sombra goats, assess what went wrong in the matchup, and then come back stronger.
I also don't really know what a Diva's going to do for them if they're playing against a lot of Doomfist and Sombra. Like, it's not like she's bringing specific shutdown potential. There's almost a point where you'd just be running 3-3 for the sake of running something more standard.
And the thing is, you have the D.Va, which can spy check really well against the Sombra, but that's only one factor. This is a two-pronged sword. This is a very deadly weapon that T1W have, which only them and realistically Element Mystic, who are basically the favorites of this tournament, are kind of running, which is the Sombra plus Doomfist combination. And you're right, the D.Va, look, it's good on one side, but really doesn't do a lot versus the Doom.
You do actually make a good point as well about EM. Without getting too ahead of ourselves, that is the team sitting ahead of whoever wins this matchup, so something they're going to have to be considering as they move forward. And I think the thing that's interesting about that, at least for Talon right now, look, if they can't deal with it out from T1W, they definitely can't deal with it out from EM. So it just makes it that more important that they can address what T1W are running. And by the way, let's also not forget that this is by far and wide not the only thing T1W will run here.
And I think that's true for Talon as well. I do not believe they will only play this one composition. They mentioned that they had some more tricks up their sleeve, and so King's Row will be where that has to show.
I think King's Row could be a very interesting map for them. I think it can hamstring a bit of what T1W want to do and help enable what Talon want to do. So again, I talked about leaning into what's comfortable for you. I think this is a very astute map pick for Talon.
I certainly agree with that. They have a very high win percentage on this map as well. Very well practiced for Talon. And, well, this would be where you'd expect them to get one back on the board.
They need to, certainly. It is a first 2-3, so if T1W pick this one up, then suddenly Talon find themselves staring down a match point and would require a reverse sweep to advance, not go down to the loser's bracket. And this is a bit interesting here, so out on the defense.
And this could be either team, right? You look at that, you see Torb, you see the Ashe, and you're thinking, who could that possibly be? And I think it's actually, yep, it's going to be Talon, because we know Pudo plays a lot of Ashe, and he had some really decent performances on that. Milan sees the Ashe, he's on the fire rather, and says, not today.
And this is how a lot of people have dealt with more bunker-oriented team compositions. They've just leaned into dive. I mean, this is really just, it's as close to a traditional dive comp as you can get in this meta, but this isn't also that traditional bunker with the Bastion.
And a few times you're going to see Meja on something other than Doomfist or the Zarya. Back on the Genji for him, and for T1W right now, just being able to dodge through all the damage coming in. Apudo is going to be one of the key players to get a lot of damage, and Bashful is there on the Junkrat for a matchup versus the 3-3 Goats, but if the Goats ain't there, well, it's all Ashe's job.
Yeah, it feels like Bashful hasn't really got the spam damage necessary, but as I say that, is able to find out Milanran. Ninja has something else to say about that. Going to find himself too before Gogora answers back. And with that, T1W have cracked and busted the bunker of Talon without so much as breaking a sweat.
And you got to look at the rotations from T1W as well. Going underneath the archway, going into that high ground area, making it really narrow for Talon Esports. And that's really where Meja can pop off, because he's now dashing through all the team, doing a lot of damage at once, cleaning up a bunch of members. And Talon Esports immediately going to make a change now. They're swapping for B, and they're definitely far behind it all.
CQB going to swap over to Lucio, because he, like the rest of his team, hopes nobody saw that. So Talon going to move back to the Sombra Goats here.
I think Meja might even potentially change back onto Doomfist once he sees the compositional change. He's very close to Dragon Blade, so likely will use that first, and T1W, you'd say, would definitely win this next fight.
You'd like to think so. Going to commit out the Nano Boost first. They're not going to come with that with the Blade. They want to put it onto Silver. Just make a bit of chaos, make a bit of space, maybe find a pick. Muse anti-naded as well will go down. Silver 3, though, takes some heat. So that is a main tank trade, but T1W have more to lean into. That being said, look at the power coming out here. Gogora able to march forward, and suddenly T1W have to reassess where they're at.
And the problem is, T1W had the ult advantage, but couldn't quite lean into it. Bashful, rather. Meja only just got the Dragon Blade. Milanra only just getting the EMP. They had the Primal Rage, they had the Nano Boost, they ran and got Muse out very early, pushed him towards T1W's own side, got him bio-nated, very quick pick, but Silver also going down. That's a mistake from them.
I feel like T1W are hamstringing themselves as well here by sticking on the D.Va. They want to get these ultimates out, but they're now closer to that mirror that we said was favoring Talon, and they don't have the ideal picks for it. But Milan ran out with the EMP, Muse down, self-destruct board. It will get the mileage they need, so T1W taking a bit of a risk, but ultimately paying off big time.
And a huge risk from Talon Esports as well, who believed that they could make a counter EMP trade, which they did achieve. However, 5 members outside of Apudo went down so quickly, they weren't able to get any damage done. They couldn't get any picks, so an EMP for an EMP, unfortunately, doesn't work for Talon.
That fight was quite in advance of the payload, so Talon could come in here for a second defense. T1W don't actually have other ultimates left, aside from this Nano Boost that they commit on Silver, who does have a Shatter available as well. That's going to be a big one, and already Transcendences from in, and there's the Shatter. Doesn't really get much. It gets Muse. Kagora's going to get finished off as well. So it's found the mileage they needed it to. T1W really had to dig deep, use everything they had left available, but still inevitably overcoming Talon here.
You would argue he got the two most important members, only two in that shadow, Kagora and Muse, but the two closest to the ultimates and closest to the very impactful ultimates. Kagora with the grab, that could have changed the game. Muse with the counter shadow, that would have been very impactful as well. Now we're sailing onto point C, and for T1W, still rolling through, still lots of momentum and a lot of time.
Also still holding on to the Diva, so to me that says they either really want to eat some grabs or really care hard about spy checking against Apudo. Could be a bit of both, but double grabs out. Kagora's is a little bit left field. Does get a couple of members, but they don't really mind. I think that was Kagora getting a bit too clever for his own good.
And unfortunately, you're now seeing the ultimate trading going so far in favor of T1W, they're not having to really use other ultimates. Talon have been kind of reeling since A. They haven't really won too many fights, haven't really won engagements, and now they probably won't win one at all.
Decent EMP there on the back line. Just going to go ahead back and see what happened in advance of that cap. This was the self-destruct fight, and the counter EMP from Apudo that a lot of members caught, but didn't get much done. Back in live, though, again, a self-destruct and EMP is going to get things over the line here for T1W.
And on live, what you did see there towards the end, Milan Run goes in, gets the EMP, covers both the supports on the side of Talon. One of them, CQB, actually had the sound barrier, so if he survived or if he actually avoided the EMP, that would have been pretty decent, probably had the counter there, but unfortunately the momentum once again from T1W so high, basically didn't lose a single fight for that entire offense, and you would expect as you head into C, especially the late parts of C, surely Talon will get one win in there.
Yeah, and I mean Talon's macro game also kind of collapsed, like right when they had that earlier fight as we hit the streets phase, they just made the compositional swap. It looked like they had a real opportunity, especially winning that first bit of the engage, to maybe dig their heels in, kickstart their ult economy, but it just didn't come to pass, and from that point on, they never seemed to get ahead.
And I think Talon just need to kind of chill right now. They need to step back a little bit, just look at this game and slow things down, because they are trying really hard to maybe make some counter plays that are biting them back really hard as well. Got to go back to one of the key moments here, the EMP versus EMP in the streets phase. Huge connection by both Sombras, but only one team was completely wiped, and it's about Talon Esports slightly too slow on the mark. If he was a Milan Run spot, Apudo we're talking about here, he gets that first EMP down, that probably is Talon Esports cleaning up T1W first. It's a game of inches, and right now it is going to be T1W running away with it.
It's also a slight slickness of execution that we did actually see out of Talon way back now on Oasis, that very first map. I know we talk about it a lot so far, but it is indicative of what Talon can do here, and we've not really seen them return to that same form just yet. Still in the pocket potentially though, so now on offense on King's Row, need to start turning things around.
And it's going to be T1W with the Sombra Goats. Talon Esports very much the same thing with Bashful on the Ana.
And then taking some early damage, but they are, aside from that, set up. So again, this is that mirror that earlier I was saying favored Talon, but now I'm not so sure. Milan Run getting hacked, but staying fine. It was Apudo taking the heat, but now Talon putting themselves on the point.
And this is where I actually kind of like Talon's adaptation here. I like it a lot more with Mija going down too.
Yeah, brilliant wrap around the early damage, and then Apudo found a hack and therefore a kill. So Talon on the point. This is just throwing down the gauntlet to T1W. Hack on Illusion as well. Apudo starting to really do work around the flanks of this team here, as the rest of the team is just raining damage on the middle part of T1W.
And I gotta say, there's been a few tricks that haven't really worked for Talon, but this one is going to be a one attempt push directly onto B. And this should be a big cleanup as well. A lot of T1W members out of position, potentially.
Yeah, they chose to hang around. They do find Muse, though, so they're going to force Talon back just a little bit. Talon with the closer respawns don't really mind. This hasn't actually stopped any cart progress.
What I will say about this Talon composition is usually Bashful is playing the Brigida. They've chosen to let go of the Brigida in favor of an Ana. What that does give them is a Transcendence Ana sound barrier to work with, because they didn't sacrifice those two members, and now they get Milan Run again.
Brilliant again, Apudo finding his counterpart. Him coming alive here is really helping this team push inward. And by the way, to mention the lack of Brigida just goes to show Reddit that Brigida isn't the only thing that enables goats.
And well, the thing that really works here is you got to also look at the T1W side. There's no Diva. How do you stop this Bionade? You've already seen Bashful land a 4-man Bionade on the other side. Once the Graviton comes down from Gagora, that's going to be a free anti deep into the side of T1W.
Talked about macro game as well, and that little gap between the halves here. So Talon, speaking of macro, just looking way ahead here. Plenty to work with. EMP out now, finds a few members. Silver gonna get dropped first out now. Apudo does get found out in response, but honestly, the damage has been done between Silver and Hy-Vee going down. Gonna dig deep as well. Grab in as in-ins. Transcendence runs out. Counter EMP. This could get dangerous. Talon didn't quite close the door on that one, and T1W force it back open. Barge right in. They're going to stop that train short.
And Talon needed a lot more picks to really win that fight there, because for T1W, they still had the Transcendence to rely on, and I thought this was going to be a fight that maybe goes in the way of Talon quite quickly. Weird doesn't have the Transcendence in time. He's about 98% to 100. He's got 2 more percent to go, and suddenly he's already lost 2 members. T1W come back in despite being a couple down, and the EMP from Milan Run absolutely seals the deal.
Now the shoe's on the other foot. T1W looking well ahead in ultimates in that macro game, even in ultimate charge for what they are currently lacking. Talon gonna have to answer for a lot coming into this fight.
And you got to look at Kokora here. He's got to be a key member. Where's the bio nade?
They're gonna have to get a lot more damage than that with the sound barrier in. T1W have no trouble staying alive, and Bashful goes down really early. And I have to say, this is one thing you do lack with the Brigida not being there, is that extra bit of pick and playmaking potential. Unfortunately, Talon gonna cop another L.
But I think it's there in a different way, right? Bashful is going to now go back onto Brigida, but you do have the Sleep Duck, you do have the Bio Node. Unfortunately, I think in the Streets phase of King's Row, perhaps couldn't quite work out the angles. Talon, again, don't have the kind of setup here to really slowly push in, find a good angle for Bashful onto the Ana to really make it work. And now he's back into the traditional, what I would say for Sombra Goats, it is going to be a pure mirror. You would expect, based on what we saw in Oasis, that maybe Talon should come out ahead, but so far it's T1W all the way.
Talon do have a bit more time to work with coming into this fight as well. They have a Shatter that they would like to be working with soon, have those support ultimates and an EMP, so this should be the fight that has the potential for them. Good hack on Milan Rat, but Apudo loses that trade. That's so rough. The Shatter is committed and is decent, but they've already lost 2 members. CQB not willing to commit himself a sound barrier there, and I think rightfully so. T1W had already really started to run away with that one.
And I think one of the shining points for Talon Esports so far on this map is that Apudo has been able to get an opening pick on Milan Run a couple of times. You felt like, okay, this is going to be a repeat. This is going to be the 6v5 that's going to put Talon ahead. But Milan Run's like, no, that's not happening today. You're the one going to go down. Apudo goes down super early. T1W, they're still in the game. Hughes drops a Shatter. He comes up, just EMPs the other entire team, and T1W are still holding very, very cleanly on B.
And suddenly, Talon have kind of undone themselves. The hard work they've done to get ahead in the macro game. T1W now, I mean, hot on their heels, if not holding even. The only difference there is that sound barrier.
And look at the 2 members hiding, by the way. Those are the ones that don't want to get caught by EMP. Meja and Weir on the side. You want to see the Transcendence. You want to see the Graviton Surge. Here it comes EMP, and Meja's in.
That was also a grab out from Apudo. Sorry, an EMP rather from Apudo that they didn't get a chance to follow up on, and now the man himself is already dead. Talon just making no headway. Where's the patience to last out the grab and then get aggressive? They're trying to put the cart before the horse in these fights.
Well, the problem is the grab comes as a response to the EMP, so you're not going to get the grab. You have to play into T1W and then be able to respond afterwards, and T1W are able to counter out the win condition for Talon Esports so effectively, and we rotate now back onto the tank ultimates, back onto Kokora, back onto Muse, and these guys got to make it happen, because if they don't do it soon, you got Milan Run nearly on another EMP, and that could seal the game.
That was also T1W committing a grab and getting a Transcendence and an EMP out. So again, just holding steady, keeping a macro lead now that Talon are struggling to stay, keep pace with rather. Squaring up for another round though. It's going to be a big EMP from Milan Ran. Nice. Sound barrier can keep these members in the fight. Bashful though is dropped down. Counter Shatter from Muse. They do get only Hy-Vee on his back. Not enough. Talon going to have to pull back now.
And unfortunately these fadeaway ultimates are just not really hitting the mark. I mean, it's like basketball. You're trying to sink it in, but it's just going wide every single time. And Talon running out of time, running out of ultimates here, and they've barely got much to work with. I mean, they need to push in. Grab's still available. Guess what? We are an Illusion sitting on double support ultimates. Very difficult for T1W to actually lose.
I mean, even if they push this through at this point, even if they get through all the way to point C, they're going to be so far behind coming into time bank Talon. They've got a lot to work with here. Sorry, a lot to work for here, and not much to work with, I should say. It's only the grab. Already Bashful dead. Sound barrier, just to deal with that. Keep these members alive. They do find Silver. Transcendence not quite in time to save him. We are a little late on the mark on that. The grab from Meja. Followed up on enough insofar as they get Gogora. Muse still in this fight, though. They're trying to get some headway. Apudo in the 11th hour might just be enough. Nietzsche is down. Muse did get dropped there, but finally, Talon are going to sink the claws in once again and get this cart pushing towards point B.
And at a very important time as well, we finally hit that overtime going in. They got a minute 30 going into C. They must cap this out if they want to go to time bank, and it's going to be a very tough one, even if they do make it. T1W sitting on 342.
And Talon made some swaps there that they're going to have to undo now. Bashful actually comes back on Baptiste. No, that's going to Brigitte. He picked the wrong B.
Nope, he's going to Anna.
Just moving up the alphabet.
He's going to rotate back to Z pretty soon.
Yeah.
At this rate, though, Milan Rush still sitting on the EMP. Very, very critical. Talon have to win multiple fights in a row here. They can probably afford to lose one, and after that, we're going to go back into overtime for C.
They don't even have a sound barrier, and that's not even your ideal tool against something like that EMP. So Talon, maybe if they can find a pick, they could get some headway here. Aside from that, they just got to hope that T1W don't press the go button before Talon run out of time.
Yeah, Talon are just buying that time because they want to support ultimate. Very important for them. Looking at Milan Run, where's he got to strike? Because that was actually a big
shatter from Muse, yeah, and they're going to be able to pick up a couple of members. Finally, Talon, it's kind of paying off that preemptive aggression that's cost them so much, and now they might just be able to push this over the line here.
And that's granted them now two support ultimates, a Graviton Surge and their own EMP. They're just going to go in. This is a trance rush.
Yeah, very aggressive, and I think rightfully so. They want to make sure they can isolate and pick these members one by one. Sound barrier to answer out. That's huge. The counter EMP as well. All the answers for Talon. Bump off the edge doesn't quite land. They do find Milan Ran. Here we go. T1W crumbling in the last minute here. We are looking to drop down, and it will be an overtime, or maybe not. Weir still didn't quite last long enough to force the overtime. Still a big discrepancy in the time bank, but Talon have held on.
We talk about the big T word here, tempo, and it seems like T1W have kind of just let go of the gas pedal at the 11th hour towards the end there. What you expect for this T1W squad is really get into, really kind of set the pace of the game. Milan Run's going to go in first. He's going to find the EMP. T1W's going to be able to push in and clean up, but because they wait so long, Muse is like, I see an opening here. I'm going to get a 3-man shatter. We're going to clean up a bunch of members. We didn't used to have defense against the EMP. Now we have double support ultimates. On top of that, we have other win conditions. You've now just given Apudo his EMP as well. You've given Gogora his Graviton Surge, and you've given Talon the ability to actually finish the map.
I think that double support as well, being able to charge up both of those in advance of that fight. They were both rounding about 80% when the shatter went down. Having both was so critical. Even the EMP out from Milan Ran could still be answered. That's how much Talon had bought themselves with that shatter.
And it feels like you have a T1W squad where you get to the later stages of the game, and we got to talk about 2 points here where they actually could have won. On that B hold, they were able to basically push ourselves into that time, into the overtime rather. That could have been their first opportunity to really stop the game right here and then. And then, of course, on to C, where you still expected them. Okay, they still have more ultimates, they still have positioning, they still got time on their side, not on Talon's side, and unfortunately, it crumbles so damn quick.
That being said, Talon now coming into the time bank. They do get their time put on the board for them, but only a minute to work with. So this is essentially a one-and-done situation. They're going to run a May.
And this is the same composition we saw last time, and this is a great read because they're seeing T1W. What are they running? It's 3-3 Goats. What's May good against? It's good against Goats.
Oh, nice wrap around to try and buy some time for Silver. He's still going to go down there and now just putting the foot on the gas pedal. Talon, they got these members low. They did the work. A huge sleep on Silver. Wall him off. Hybe tried to wrap around, maybe come in for a bit of hero play, a bit of defense, but still too easy to finish the man off. And now T1W really.
It's a bit of a storm in a teacup here. T1W finally realizing, I hope they finally realize, look, you got to stay on the Sombra here. You got to stay on the Doomfist. If you want to go back to a 3-3, you're going to get punished by other teams. Talon see this, they go perfect opportunity to bring out that May. Will be interesting to see if Apudo stays on this, looking at the possible changes for T1W because they only need to win one fight. That's what they got to look towards.
This push is super critical for Talon though. They need to get a ton of distance if they want to feel at all safe against the 4.5 minutes that T1W will be working with.
And any amount of distance here becomes a big bonus for Talon Esports. They want to be able to, like you said, get that distance, get that time. You look at Bashful's positioning as well. He's got the high ground. He's looking for the Bionet angle.
If Talon can find a fight here or something, that would be so huge for them. Tried to get the isolate with the May wall. No such luck just yet. There we go.
Ooh,
Gets eaten by Hybe. Does get frozen himself though. Transcendence committed from in. Talon are just going to start throwing the ultimates in. See what sticks. They do find High B's mech. The grab is there. Struggling to finish off these members though. Good healing coming through, but trying to isolate some members. They do get High B. Muse is down. Silver 3 stays frozen up. Wall is there. They will finally take him down, but they've lost a lot of their damage. It's just the Pudo doing the work. Amija is still in this fight. Still at near 100 charge. The ultimate's not going to come back up for Talon. The respawn's not quite there, so T1W holding on in a very critical place.
And what I'm going to say as well, Talon got so many members on the other side so low, but failed to clean them up at a very good time for T1W. They just stayed alive for so long, they were able to get the counter damage and they were able to get the counter trades and even their own bio-nades landing. Everything seemed to start working once again. And you see on the side of Talon Esports, unfortunately, Blizzard was eaten by High-B. That was a huge tool that was taken off the board very early on.
And you got to imagine, if that had have connected, we would probably be looking at a very different fight. It is very hard for 3-3 to do much when they're all frozen up. Those tanks rather, become great big ultimate batteries for your team. Could have given Talon a real kick start for the rest of the Streets phase, but critical diva play, you've got to say.
And I think if you do win that fight as well, you start snowballing towards the end of B. You've charged up your other ultimates like you mentioned. We probably even have a good chance of capping B. Maybe we start getting into C. This is all trajectory. But we look at a team like Talon and you think that's what could have been if the fights kind of worked out. They still got a reasonable amount of distance. What this does mean is going to their own time back defense, they must really hold A. If they cannot manage to complete the A defense, they're going to go into Streets and likely lose Streets because there's not a lot of distance to work with there.
Certainly not out of it just yet here, Talon, but 4.5 minutes is a tough ask, especially when their original hold didn't go so well. So I want to see Talon not get too clever here, and that does seem to be their same opinion.
And I don't know how many more tricks Talon Esports really want to bring out now. If they got any, they probably do want to kind of use them. A Pudo back on the Sombra. T1W going to be playing Fire again.
Now this is interesting. It's actually going to be a lot on a Pudo to try and deal with this. Certainly potentially possible if he can get some angles in.
What you see from T1W is they're choosing this composition because they know they don't really have to snowball onto B or C. Yep. If they win A, they've basically got it.
That's all they need to do, break the one little spot. So back on High B, might be able to demech him, not quite though. Talon,
Agora.
Some kind of pick would give them so much momentum here, but the same is true for T1W.
This is so tight as well. Look at the ultimate charge. Weir's really getting himself ahead right now for T1W. Looking for that first pixel and they're just hunting.
Look at the damage charge though. Gogora's starting to become a real threat here, especially on these squishier members. That beam sticks on you for too long and you are a goner. But T1W with the ultimates are able to start pushing on the point now. Talon really starting to run out of time here.
So many ultimates. EMP though.
It's a bit of a wonky one, you've got to say. They only found Silver and they got close respawns anyway. Mew's going to go down. That is not a good trade for Talon. Gogora as well, not quite able to get that grab out in a good angle. They're trading a few back. Milan Run does go down, but
oh, that's such a key member.
That's a stun on Silver. Not going to finish him off. Talon have held on here. Gogora just with the damage. T1W, they do have the time though to just take a breather and reset.
Great sleep by Weir onto Gogora, but they couldn't quite clean him up. And like you mentioned, a key member has the damage output, still has a Graviton Surge as well. The fact that Talon Esports can actually survive that offense push from T1W without losing a single tick as well, as a reminder, that's a big deal for Talon, who are definitely still in.
Who are also a bit behind on ultimates now, looking like they could at least approach ahead. Sleep on Gogora, but he gets woken back up. Mew's low, so T1W still looking for that opening. They're going to commit a sound barrier here, which means Talon kind of have to go if they want to make that worthwhile. Pudo's super low. Milan Ryan just largely unanswered right now. Gogora's still held on to a grab now for so long.
And he's looking for members. Does he get the pharmacy combo? Does he try and use it onto Silver or High B? Something's going to happen because time is not looking good.
That's a forced transcendence, and much like the forced sound barrier, Talon, they push because they have to make that worthwhile, but they still lose a Pudo. Milan Run now sky high. This is a great angle. If he can throw it down on top of Muse, on top of Gogora, that grab he's held on to since the start of that very first fight will not get any connection, at least not at this point. That will be T1W breaking through.
And now it's all about the respawners for Talon Esports. Can they get back together in time? They must be able to defend B for all they've got. They have an EP coming up pretty soon. In and now, going over to his own Ana. T1W still pushing through. They have ultimates available, and me just looking for an angle.
2 minutes, it's doable for Talon, but they got to actually get to this defensible spot nearer to the arch, the earlier stretch of Streets phase. Still got that grab to work with, but Aegis Dragon Strike is devastating in these Streets.
And they do spot the big flank from Talon Esports, so that's a pretty big deal so far.
There is that Dragon Strike, gets a bit of damage on some members. Can they stay alive? huge sleep buys them time. Can they heal these members up though? Just barely they can. That is incredible. Silver would have easily cleaned up those kills, and now Talon, the shoes on the other foot. EMP out, only gets a couple. They need to actually get those kills to make it worthwhile. Illusion's a big one. Molandran as well, and Talon want to put the foot on the gas pedal again. Gogora, plenty of charge still in the pocket. Silver as well, having committed that Primal Rage, is going to maybe wish he had it. Talon are definitely down, but certainly not out.
Absolutely miracle play here from Talon as well. You see them just survive barely by the skin of their teeth time and time again. We saw that on A. When you thought they probably would have lost the fight, they actually didn't. You see that again right now on B. They're actually making this work. There's less than 1 minute, and you're starting to believe there's a possibility Talon can do this.
Still going to get that next critical fight, possibly one after as well. There's that grab, finally committed. Can they get the follow-up damage though? There it is! Huge kills coming through, and Meja trying to rain fire from above is nowhere near enough to answer it. Now just over 30 seconds on the clock for T1W. They're seeing that victory slip away.
But this is the most important fight, and this is the one for T1W where they have banked up. Yes, they did lose the previous fight, but they have the time to now push in 4, 5 ultimates, maybe even 6 if Silver stays alive. Talon Esports, this one sound barrier, they have to get so much mileage out of CQB.
They sorely needed an EMP for this fight, but Apuno not quite there. Charging it up quick though, finds Silver as well. Early pick, Apuno back on top. Self-destruct board from Hybe does not really get them anything. Gogora so much charge, does go down to Molandran, who finds Fuse as well, and that could be more than enough here. Finally goes down himself, but Illusion still in the mix, can commit himself for Rez. Apuno close to the EMP, but going to die before he gets the committed. So T1W barely going to steer that ship safely to harbor. Maybe a few masts lacking rather, but it gets there. They're safe.
Got a few holes in the planks of wood over there for T1W, but they make it there just as the ship maybe sinks. You got to look inside of Talon Esports, and this is now, you can probably describe them as the team that nearly got there. 2 maps in a row where early lead, once again, Oasis not quite able to finish things through on King's Row. Certainly not an early lead. They struggled for most of it. You would even argue they had most of their success towards the latter half of that map. We look at the time back, started to look okay. No, they couldn't quite make a lot more distance on attack, and that's something I want to address as well, because we go back to the notion of if they did get a little bit more, maybe win the fight with them, they get the Blizzard out there. Can't be as well. That looked like they were going to be able to complete a hold onto B with barely any distance, and they barely did not.
That actually came incredibly close when you really cut it. So I think there's 2 ways you can look at that. The first is that, hey, that was Talon's map pick. That should have been the one where they were a bit more favored, and it started very disastrously. That's a bad sign. The other way you can look at it is, even in spite of the loss here, that was exceptionally competitive, and I would say it says Talon are not out of this series yet, even 0-2 down as they are. But 0-2 down, no room to breathe.
Well, that's the first here for the Pacific Showdown. When we come back, we'll be here with match number 2. See you later.
Apagando las luces.